How you doing? It's Sandesh here. I'm going to be reading an article from SpikedOnline.com. I'm going to get into it now. It's about Trump's victory. They still don't get it. 8 years after Trump was first elected president of the United States of America, the elites remained mystified that such an anomaly could occur. They still view his voters less as rational beings to be engaged with than as far-flung tribe to be studied. They still approach this curious horde, if they approach it at all. As a Victorian philanthropist might have approached pre-modern people in the descent from South Africa, I went to a CPAC as an philanthropist to understand Trump's base, wrote a distinguished professor earlier this year, breezily unaware of the offence such pseudo-scientific studies might cause to those being studied. And that's another thing they still don't get. How creepy they seem to ordinary people. They still don't get that people might have their reasons to vote for Trump. They still wring their untoiled hands over the mass psychology of Trumpism. They still send their psychological experts to study how this most curious of peoples can justify their beliefs in the face of disconfirming information. Yes, they still swaddle in fancy academic dialect that belief. They are unwilling to stand out loud. These people are dumb as shit. They still view the Trumpist masses as um, um, uniquely suspectal and tricky and manipulation as tragic inhabitants of a dark fantasy who seem to struggle with the difference between fact and fiction. As a writer for the Atlantic put it this week, there are still that in conception. Sorry about that. They still view them as thick fox. They still send their reporters to mingle among America's low information voters, as the New Yorker did recently. They still love to point out that Trump does best in polls of people who pay little attention to political news. Well, obviously that's obviously not true, because if that was true, then how the hell did Trump win twice? That doesn't happen unless his voters are paying attention to the news, and they're seeing that the news is nothing just filled with nothing but lies, lies, lies. The ones who don't understand what the hell is going on are the ones who voted for Biden and voted for Kamala Harris, and they believe what they see on the news as nothing but as the God's honest truth. They still reach for the smelling salts when one of the low information little people tells them, "I don't trust any media, nor Google, nor Facebook," as a MAGA fella told the New Yorker. Yeah, because Mark Zuckerberg, I remember, admitted on Joe Rogan that they had a hand in the I think it was the 2020 election. As if it isn't eminently reasonable for these folk to distrust and dodge an MSM that views them as half-wits and lowlifes lost in a fantasy of lies, and as easy prey for Trumpian scheming. And that's the one thing I noticed, that they paint Trump voters like that, and yet every time you see Trump mingle with his voters, he never treats them like that at all, even at his rallies whatsoever. Even if he's not on a rally, even when he first won and he was first president, he never treated his voters like that whatsoever. He treated them like people. They still don't get that people don't take kindly to being told Trump is preying on their hazy understanding of world affairs, because they know what this means. My God, you're stupid. They still think millions of Americans are under the spell of a MAGA cult. They still view them as the hick endurance to a neo-religious movement obsessed with guns and God. 16 years after Barack Obama pissed off Midwest voters by saying many of them cling to guns or religion, and anti-empathy to people who aren't like them. And he tried to say to them, "Oh, you're not man enough because you're not man enough because you won't vote for Kamala Harris." And he tried to talk down to black people as well. I remember when Obama did that. Fucking asshole. And 8 years after Hillary Clinton said half of Trump voters belong to a basket of deplorables, they still gnash their teeth over the worldview of God, guns, and Trump that allegedly motors this odd mass. It's funny that they have to have that mindset, because when the um, recent hurricane happened in America, and Trump set up that GoFundMe for the people that were devastated. Who were the people that donated? Oh yeah, that's right, MAGA supporters, Trump supporters. They were the ones. So yeah, then they're obviously not stupid people. They still think they're racist. They still pump out anti-drone propaganda saying Trump voters are beholden to a deep-seated fear of racial otherness, as Le Monde did this week. They still deplore. They still make no secret of their rare feed bewilderment that anyone could vote for Trump. 8 years after a New York Times columnist Halty wondered how could anyone vote for Trump. No doubt to the ferocious nodding of every brunch eater in the city, professors still ask, why do people still back Trump after everything? Do at least now they offer 5 things to understand about these people's thinking. They're still trying to crack the masses' mysterious minds. They still mistake their own geographical and moral aloofness, gated um their gated thinking, let's say, for the lower orders. The fact that they have never once crossed paths with a Trump voter for proof that such voters are strange. Fairway beats are almost dreamlike community. They're still, to paraphrase Jonathan Swift, mistake the echo of their coffee houses for the voice of the nation. They still blame them for future doom. They still tell them that by dumbly voting for Trump, they will condemn the world to end times. Yeah, because that's what happened. That was mainstream media's pretty much that's what they were pretty much saying. They were blaming voters, saying, "Oh, you voters are stupid for voting for Trump." A victory for Trump could reverberate for a million years, because this oligarch might just break the planet's climate system, says a headed scribe at the Guardian. A Trump win will mark the return of chaos and an increased risk of cataclysm, said Vox. Well, first of all, when Trump won the first time, none of that ever happened. If shit only got worse when Biden became president and Kamala Harris was vice president. Go figure. Yes, they charge the most powerless people in American society, working class voters, for Trump, with witlessly bringing about mankind's descent to convulsing hell of climate doom and war. 8 years ago, they found these rednecks guilty of rehabilitating fascism. Now they convict them of being dim aiders and abettors of apocalypse. While the thing is, as far as spreading fascism, the Democrats are the ones that spreading fascism. It's what they want. They still slight them, they still demean them. Welcome to your Nazi rally. I saw well-to-do Kamala campaigners holler at the good people who attended the Trump rally in NYC last weekend. They still don't understand how awful the optics are when the credential elites sneer. Working men and women who just have a different political view. You are voting for a rapist, a psychopath, and a fraud. Kamala's New York posse shouted at the mostly out-of-town Trumpists who come to see the man they plan to vote for, seeing bourgeois New Yorkers who gallantly forsworn their usual Sunday brunch to bark insults at women in sensible zip-up tops and men in check shirts, brought home to me like nothing else the class homeless that fuels establishment Trump-phobia. They still don't get that there is indeed a class war, and they are on the wrong side of it. Yeah, this article pretty much sums it up on what the hell is wrong with the elites, and it's obvious that they're never going to change, and they don't want to change. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.